Hey, we want to welcome everybody to Counterpoise today, and our show this week is going to be an excellent show that we have. I want to welcome you guys. My name is Everett Stevenson. I'm joined with my lovely co-host.
Hey, this is Malik Foster. I'm a co-host for Counterpoise Podcast.
Hey everybody, I'm Samantha Adams. I'm the third co-host, and today we are also joined by a very special guest. Her name is Yasmin Cunningham, and today's topic is colorism. So let's just go ahead and get right on into it.
Yes, sir. That's been a real good topic, man. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of stuff that's been going on lately with people talking about this issue. A lot of stuff that's been going on in the news. I've been actually seeing some positive and discussing it. And it's one that's been going on in the community, for a while, really, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if you guys want to, set up the topic with any of you guys' thoughts about, the topic in general, or?
Yeah, I'll say something. I think that people have to understand first and foremost what colorism is, because I do think that there is a group of people out there that don't know what it is. They don't really understand it. Some people practice in it and don't even know that they're practicing in it. You know what I'm saying? And colorism is literally like, it's pretty much like a type of prejudice amongst the Black community, right? It's the attitude that lighter skin is better or more privileged or prettier or whatever, right? And a lot of that stems from the history of our enslaved ancestors, right? It comes from having the lighter skinned biracial people getting to live in the house. And it wasn't always like that. Of course, they had some darker people living in the house too, but the lighter they were, generally speaking, the closer they were to the big house, if not living inside the big house. Whereas darker skinned people tend to be out in the field working, and they weren't treated the same way. So as a result, there became this animosity amongst the people, right? Divide and conquer. That's how the oppressor has been able to oppress us. Oh, by the way, guys, every now and then you'll hear an occasional bark. That's our unofficial fourth co-host, my dog Chino, who has zero respect for time.
Hey, what's up, Chino?
Anything that anybody's doing. So I apologize in advance for his barking. But anyway, that's a gist of what colorism is. So I think that maybe we should just go ahead and just get right into it, unless anybody wants to talk about an experience that they've had.
No, we can get right into it. We have a couple videos lined up for you guys. We're going to react to and then provide you our comments and thoughts after the video's finished. And our first video is about Danny Lee and her song. I'm going to pull that up right now so we can take a look at that over here. Sorry about that, guys.
You might have to hit that back one time because of the sound.
I'm sorry about that, guys. I'm over here just talking away. But the song is called Yellow Bone, and pretty much the song is allegedly about, just promoting being light skinned. And it's supposed to be paying homage to all the light skinned baddies out there. And she caught a lot of backlash for it. There's also the whole, narrative that the real reason why she made the song was to take a jab at the baby's ex-girlfriend, baby mama, whatever, because she's a dark-skinned sister. And so I think that, that's where the colorism comes in, right? Because it's almost trying to make it seem as though being light-skinned is better when it's just, beauty is beauty, right? Like whether somebody's light-skinned, dark-skinned, whatever, beauty is beauty. So what are you guys' thoughts on it? I mean, I know a lot of people have seen it and heard it because, shoot, it went viral. So, what are you guys' thoughts?
I wanted to go ahead and first of all, agree with you for your introduction on basically what colorism is. I know you and I have had deep discussions about it before, and we both, experienced some things growing up. But I want to point out, like in general, I grew up in New Orleans. That's where I'm from. And after Katrina, I moved to Mississippi. So, I'm from the deep South. And being a darker skinned woman already was very challenging. As far as my experience, I didn't grow up seeing people that look like me on TV. And if they were, they weren't praised in a good light. And so I think that when we watch videos like that today, or as I guess I can only speak for myself, but me being a dark-skinned woman, watching videos like that today, because her lyrics were yellow bone is what he wants. I believe that's what it said. I couldn't really hear it too much from the screen, but I don't even necessarily think it's praising, a light skin, but I think it is taunting a darker skinned woman because we know that her boyfriend's the mother of his child or whatever is a dark-skinned woman. So you're taunting Black women, and then that this is something that you are feeding off of a stereotype already, that being dark-skinned is not something that Black men or this Black man wants, right? And then I think what intensified that was the baby's comments, on the video or whatever. So I just wanted to point that out, that I think that based on the history of it, I just like it's no excuse, like we are living in a.
Yeah, in regards to like his response to the video, because I wasn't aware of that, what he said.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I was saying, can you tell us like his response to the video? Because I didn't even know.
Okay, I saw like it was a YouTube clip I saw, and they kind of put the Shade Room's comment. Not the Shade Room posted it, but he commented under there just like yellow circles, just like so it's like yellow bone. And it's crazy because where I'm from, I never even heard the term yellow bone. Like we don't use that anyway. So that's what I was confused on in general. Like, I'm sure y'all are familiar with New Orleans, so we have a lot of pastor whites, like a lot of lighter skinned people in general. So it was just not referred to as yellow bone. So maybe y'all need to put me on. Is that something that, people refer to, lighter skin? Black women at that, because I really thought that it was only referred to Black women, like a lighter skinned Black woman.
Yes, Yasmin, it is typically only referencing light-skinned Black women.
Okay.
It doesn't reference like white women at all or Asian women. So it is strictly for Black people. But my thoughts on the video was that Danny Lee, she's pretty ignorant about the history of things, like even the brown paper bag test, things of that nature. She's just ignorant about that. And she doesn't see how that's a sensitive issue and an internal issue within our community, because it stems from slavery, as you mentioned earlier, Sam. During the plantation days when Blacks were slaves here in the United States, you had the darker skinned slaves, primarily the labor force, and you had the lighter skinned slaves who got to be in the house, closer to master, and all that stuff. But that's primarily due to the the vile nature of racism.
I'm not too sure what happened. Malik, you froze out there, buddy.
Hey, I'm back. Am I back?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we hear you now.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened. But I'm back now.
We're at the part where like the lighter skin slaves, the dark skin, or some darker skin and lighter skin slavery part.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was leading into the point of like where some of this stuff stemmed from. So how the lighter skinned slaves were in the house with master, but still it appears like they're getting better treatment to the darker skinned slaves, but they just don't know. Like sometimes the lighter skinned slaves were their relatives, or like maybe the white person maybe fancied them, had the woman as a concubine, or if there was a man in the house, he was their son or a relative, something like that. So it has ugly roots. Colorism has here in the United States, and that's one of the reasons why I think Danny Lee received the backlash she received, because she's just blatantly ignorant and trying to promote a skin shade, which she should just try to promote just being a Black person as a whole and in general, and not try to promote a skin tone, because that divide and conquer is what they've been doing to us Black people here in the United States since we got here. So divided we fall. So that's what they're doing here. And the baby's comments on her post is just part of it, because he's part of that industry. So of course he's going to co-sign. He's not going to do the right thing. So
Well,
your thoughts?
I go on that and say I wanted to piggyback off of what you just said on that part, Malik, because I feel like that's absolutely true. And one of the reasons why I like, Sam Ray mentioned to this, I mean, I want to say shout out to the Spiritual Homegirl for this tea, but I wore this one in particular because I knew that this topic in particular has roots that go about systematic racism and things of that nature. And I don't always want to make our topics of the show go into that, but like you may mention in regards to how lighter skin, and the same complexion necessarily was brought into the history of Black people in some regards, especially in America, and with as far as the concubine things and that nature of the rapes and things of that nature that may have took place during the times of slavery. And so and like you said, then you have people such as like Thomas Jefferson as individuals in this country who was hailed as a great pioneer for America, but was also known to have children from some of his slaves as well. And so when we look at how colorism has been rooted within our country, and we look at how it's kind of transcended further down, I think the discussion needs to be moving forward, how we could just be able to learn like what, again, qualities within a person makes them beautiful as opposed to just the skin. Because again, everyone's going to have their own personal preferences. No one has a problem with that. But I just think that, we need to be able to understand why some people think that they prefer something over another, and why you think you have that preference. Because a lot of things are learned behavior, you know what I mean? And I think that's a topic that needs to be discussed along with colorism, because in order for us to break that, we need to learn to like break seeing it as that within our community, and that's why I'm saying it in that regard. Because I think the topic is different outside of the community, right? Because whether you light skin or you dark skin, if you in a community or whether you're in a white neighborhood, you still Black, right? But then within our own community, it's like, oh, you light skin, you Black, you might get a little more of a preferential treatment. Even if you in a white community and you're lighter skin and you Black versus a darker skin, you may still get a little more preferential treatment, but you still gonna be ostracized as compared to another peer of someone who may be Caucasian. And so, yeah, that's my general topics on this subject.
I think the problem that I've noticed, like with colorism over the years, because, it is defined as a prejudice or discrimination against dark tones, right? And so, as I stated before, people have fed off of that for years. That's kind of what we see in the industry. That's what we see before our eyes. That's even what we've seen growing up with Barbie dolls and just every type of image that we can see, we were taught that light is right or better in some type of way. But the issue that I do have with it is, colorism is talked about a lot. Like, we're aware of what it is, but it's people who still want to profit off of it, in a sense of they know that this is an issue, so they continue to feed, off of this, and they continue to taunt whoever, Black women and Black men do the same. So I guess just all around. And I know that colorism is not just, or at least is not defined to strictly deal with our racial group or just Black people. People have experienced it in other cultures as well, as far as darker skin tones. But I think that's just pretty much the main issue I have with the video. It's like, that this is something that you've gotten away with before, because this is what they think, right? Like, this is what a lot of lighter skinned women think, like, not think, but they also know that. They know that this is the reaction that they're going to get from the people that they want because of their skin color, which is why we have like blackfishing today. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with what that is, but where you have a lot of white women darkening their skin tones or putting on darker makeups just to fit into the culture or just to be a part of the culture. So I think that, like I said, that's just the problem I really have with it. It's just more so we know that this is an issue and we come up with all of these ways to solve colorism, but will it ever be solved if it's always a continued issue of what we see up on the front lines of preferences? Or because, like you said, it's okay to have preferences, but is it? Because we know what colorism is. And so are those preferences aligned based on those, are those preferences aligned based on colorism, in a sense? Like, is it something hidden inside that you, in your mind, you have this preference, but why do you have this preference, in a sense? I hope I'm making sense.
And, that's where I was going with it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can have a preference, but like, again, like, how do you, like, what's to say, who's to say that was your thought to have? Like, right, you know what I'm saying? Because you touched on that earlier. You might grow up seeing certain types of Barbie dolls. You might grow up seeing certain types of images on TV. So you might think, oh, I just prefer that. That's what you think you prefer at this point in time. But what was there things that made you think that that's what you prefer? And I think that's another one of the reasons why we have this show, is to try to foster that type of thought process, to ask yourself and to question yourself, why do I have that preference? Or is it like, how can I prefer one thing over another? Because, like, to be honest with you, and I'm speaking from a male standpoint when I say this, like, it's crazy to me, even from, and I might hear, hey, this is a wild statement, but like, it's crazy to me, you know what I'm saying, even from the standpoint of just being able to say, like, you have a preference of a woman, that's one thing, sure, no problem. And maybe a preference that you might choose to say that you want to be with to start a family, that's understandable. Men might have that, like, oh, this is maybe the type of woman that I want to be with. You know what I'm saying, with that. Or this is maybe the type of woman I might want to have my children with. You know what I'm saying? A man might want to be with one woman and might want to have a child with another. So I can understand how guys can have different preferences for different things. But to me, it needs to be like, oh, well, I don't think another woman might be attractive just because of a certain color of their skin. It's crazy to me, because it's like, do you not like women? Like, do you not like, you know what I'm saying, the essence of a woman? Like, do you not like, that tone that they may have, or the affinity of how they walk and the things that they do? Like, so if, like, because how can you not see that in anything, that any woman that, that is beautiful within your eyes? Because I know beauty is also subjective, you know what I'm saying? So that's how I feel like it's a little weird, but also I feel like it's also learned to prefer one over another.
I think to an extent it's learned, but I mean, like you guys said, preference is preference. Some people prefer their mate to be tall, some prefer them to be short, some prefer them to be skinny, some prefer for them to be thicker. But at the end of the day, like I think you guys both touched on it. If it's one thing if it's a preference rooted in just what you like versus being rooted in ignorance and lack of lack of understanding and education, and also too insecurity, right? Because also too, a lot of times when you see It doesn't happen all the time, but you do see it happen often where when you have people telling, oh, I prefer them light skin, a lot of times they're darker, right? And then, I mean, I've definitely heard people make comments like, oh, especially if it's a darker complected person trying to be with a lighter complected person and they want to have a baby, they don't want their baby to be dark. Or sometimes, colorism isn't just one way, right? It isn't always just against darker skinned people, because sometimes people prefer to have, like, especially when you start talking about like what, but this is a little bit kind of a side topic, but it goes to that black fishing thing that you were talking about, Yasmin, when you said like you have it goes to that. You have white people pretty much saying, hey, I want to be with a black person because I want to have a chocolate baby. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, is that a preference? Like, what is that? You know what I'm saying? And people really have to should really be trying to address those internal things. Another thing that we didn't talk about, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, but it does definitely have a lot to do with colorism, is how you also have this movement of Black people trying to bleach their skin, right? To try to make themselves lighter so that they can love themselves more. It really just comes from finding a way to have some self-love and understanding about what colorism is, and just really just loving the skin that you're in. You know what I mean? I really do think that it has a lot to do with that as well,
and I just want to, I'm sorry, was somebody about to jump in here? Because I just wanted to add on to that, because I think with what you were saying, as far as like loving the skin that you're in, I think all of that plays into the part of teaching someone to, one, have self-values within themselves. And these are the things that I think, again, that I was trying to get at. Like, we got to teach, like, stop looking at just at what a person look like and start looking at being like, what, you know what I'm saying? What are they? Who are they as a person? What are they being like? You know what I mean? Things that goes beyond that, because like you said, you might have your little thoughts of what you thought your preference might be, but is it just because this is what you think you see on TV, versus is this something that someone that you feel like you need to be with, and you just happen to find that only these are the type of women that, you know what I'm saying, help you to be the best man that you can be, you feel me? Or whatever, you know. So that's why I think you have to ask yourself those questions as to, like, is this necessarily a preference of like colorism versus, you know what I'm saying, is this something that I'm kind of learning to like?
There was I'm sorry, did you want to go?
No.
There was an article, I want to say it was in Essence, and I'm not sure if I discussed this with you, Sam, but Gabrielle Union was discussing how she, I think her and D Wade, they kind of asked their sons, like, what is your preference? Like, who do you think are the baddest females? And so she talked about how they only name light-skinned women. And when she asked them why, they were like, I don't know, because everybody else think it's cool, or because that's what it is. And so it kind of goes back to that, like, is it your preference because this is just what it is? Like, this is the images that you see in society. Is it being forced on a younger generation, just to think that way? Or is it something deep inside? So I think after that, she started asking them about, I don't want to mention a name and it wasn't that, but I do believe it said, she asked them about like Ryan Destiny or just some other chocolate women. And, they were like, okay, she's cute too, but they just didn't consider, like they didn't even consider it. And, we see that a lot, at least I do, like within, the younger generation and stuff. It is something that, women go through, I think, in their own unique way. And then also men go through when it comes down to having those preferences or putting women on a standard, on a pedestal. And it can just be about anything, right? It could even be women doing it towards men and vice versa. So I don't know. It's something to think about. And like I said, when I see videos like that of the taunting, it's, in my opinion, other people coming into the culture benefiting from that, because just looking at old videos of Danny Lee back then into now, I would just say she did not fit into the culture, and that was not her goal to be a part of the culture, if you want to call it that, until it benefited her. And so a lot of them do that. There was a famous YouTuber recently who went viral because she got caught up blackfishing, like, and she actually told someone back in the day that she wanted to look mixed so she can reap the benefits of the sponsorships and things like that. So, you know, it's a lot of people coming into the community because they see that this is on a pedestal, and we've done it for years. We put, you know, lighter skin on a pedestal so much to where other people want to profit off of it because that's all they have to do. They don't have to do much. Unfortunately, they just got to be light skinned. So I don't know.
And yeah, I just want to throw in there too. Like, I don't think this is a statement, and just for any viewer that might watch this to think that we're saying that, oh, a person who light skinned, they life just so much better, and you know, if anything is just handed to them. It's not to say that, but I think it's more so to say that the fact of like what I was making the statement earlier as to say that, you know, you may get treated a little bit different. You might get watched a little different when you walk in certain stores. You might can go in certain neighborhoods and maybe they won't, you know what I'm saying, keep a certain eye on you as much as they would to say, oh, well, I've never seen someone around like that guy around here before, you know what I'm saying, and look at you a little different. You might can pass through a little bit easier without it being, you know, so much of a tension when you walk around certain other races and things of that nature. And I think that's what we're kind of getting at when we talk about, you know, some of the differences in which, you know, the complexion of your skin can be. And within our own community, yeah, that part is just tough, you know, because it's like we perpetuate some of the things that, you know, were used to try to, you like you said earlier, Sam, divide us or try to break us down. And it's like we got to a point where nowadays we just do it on our own, without necessarily having to be told. You feel me? Like with this whole, oh, that's my preference, or this, that, and the third, or whatever. I'm not saying that people can't have preferences. I'm just regarding some of the statements in which some people say, I only do this, or whatever the case may be.
Right. Just to wrap up the point of about preferences, I think it stems from what you were saying earlier, Yasmin. How can we solve the issue, right? I think it's a long-term solution to it, which is through media and just in a sense advertising and promoting, you know, just being black, being in your skin is fine, because we've had probably well over 100 years, maybe plus, of programming that light is right. The lighter your skin tone, skin shade, the better you are. Black is bad. So that's how we've been programmed for decades upon decades. And, you know, generation after generation, we've been programmed and conditioned to be taught that, you know, like the lighter you are, the better your life's going to be. If you're darker, you're just downtrodden, you're evil, you're bad, or whatever. Anything bad is black. So that's why you have people bleaching their skin to get lighter, especially a lot of these women, so they potentially can attract a higher earning mate, so to uplift them out of their condition. And for men, when it comes to the hiring practices, potentially for a better paying job and just a better social network and network in general. So there's a lot of issues with colorism besides just, you know, the name calling or even the dating with just black people in general. So there's reasons why black people decide like, hey, I'm going to do this in terms of my skin, or hey, I want to date a white woman, because we are subconsciously programmed to and conditioned to think, that lighter shade white woman or that lighter skinned girl is better for me because they're light, not because of their personality or, you know, any other feature, but just because of their skin tone. And that's where it all stems from, just that programming that's been going on for well over 100 years. So that's
yeah, that's why I think I'm sorry, I was just gonna say that's why I think that everybody, like whoever watches this show, should just challenge themselves to like moving forward. That's my only ask, is that, you know, to look beyond necessarily color. And I know sometimes people say that, oh, I don't see color. No, that's some bullshit. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's just not true, right? You feel me? Everyone, you're going to see it, right? And I think even just on a psychological level, to a certain extent, you know what I'm saying, you're going to see it to the point where when you in certain places, it either makes you feel more comfortable if you see it, or it makes you feel maybe a little less tense or more tense when you don't see it. You know what I'm saying? Because then you realize, okay, I'm in an area that might not be, real unique to the places that I'm from and I'm used to. So I might have to be on a little more awareness and alertness while I'm in these places or in these spaces.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think when it comes to something that Malik touched on, is pretty much just like kind of education, right? Learning more about it and learning to embrace who you are. But I think that's kind of begun to happen. It's a part of this movement that's going on within our culture to embrace blackness and to love your skin, to love your hair, right? Because hair definitely plays a huge role, right? Especially even in the legal, especially in our community, the legal community, right? We like, my hair, I'm thankful that I have a job, the place that I work, where they don't give me a hard time about my hair, right? But when I go to court, when I dyed my hair red, I was definitely nervous about whether or not the judge was going to be okay with it. And I had to deal with that in stages. And that had more so to do with, regardless if the judges, even though the courtroom that I work in, the judge that I work with, she's a white woman, but Black women are notorious for telling other Black women what to do with their hair, based on how they may be perceived. And that goes towards that whole colorism thing, right? Because it's like, it's not just about this image that we're supposed to portray out there in society. It also has a lot to do with that self-love that we need in order to break free from having these colorism issues, whether it be the self-loving the skin that you're in, or treating somebody differently, or whatever, just because they are darker or they look more African, whether it be because their hair is super curly or nappy or whatever. You know what I'm saying? All of that, I think, kind of goes hand in hand. And I think, like you guys said, I think it's important to just go ahead and like really start working towards embracing that and loving that and uplifting it, whether it be in social media, through social media, whatever kind of social media, whether it be in television, film, whatever it is, we have to just continuously push forth those images so that, dark skinned babies can know that they're just as beautiful as light skinned babies. And it's more so, like you guys said, about who you are on the inside, as opposed to, just the complexion of your skin. The complexion of your skin has no bearing truly on really anything, I think, but I do know that Danny Lee did try to issue an apology after she caught all kinds of backlash. You know what I'm saying? And so I think, we have a clip of that. So let's go ahead and take a look at that apology and break that one down.
Yeah, I'll pull it up one moment.
Okay. But yeah, I definitely think while Malik is pulling that up, I do think it's important to really just try to embrace and love the skin that you're in, right? I don't care if you're light skin, dark skin, brown skin. I know for me, while he's pulling that up, my own personal experiences have been, in certain spaces being told that I'm super light skinned, and then other experiences told I'm dark skinned, but I'm not. I'm neither. I'm in the middle. I'm brown, right? And so being treated differently based on whichever space that I'm in, it's a strange construct, and I think that we definitely have to evolve past it so we don't have to keep running into these kinds of issues. You got it, Malik?
Yeah, I got it up.
Okay.
Everybody see it?
Not yet. Yeah, here it is.
Okay.
Personal thing to certain people because colorism is a real thing, so I do get it. But I'm not that. I'm not a colorist. I'm not a racist. I date a whole chocolate man. I have beautiful dark skinned friends. And skin isn't something I even see. It's not something that I look at. So yeah, I don't live for the internet. I just because people don't know me. So that's why I thought it was important to speak on it because you don't know me. It's like, let me tell you guys what I meant by this. So hopefully you guys can watch this with a open heart, a genuine mind, and just, try to get past it. I'm sorry. Again, if I offended people who are truly offended, I am sorry. And yeah, I'm gonna just keep grinding, keep doing me. And it's so personal because it can be a personal thing to.
Yeah, I definitely have to say something about that. The first thing she talked about is making it seem like it's impossible for her to be a colorist because she's with the dark skinned dude. And that's the biggest little crap I think I've ever heard. You know, that's just like a white person saying they're not racist because they got black grandbabies. If you're a racist, you're a racist. If you're a colorist, you're a colorist, whatever. It doesn't matter who you attach yourself to try to justify what the situation is. It's a mindset. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that that's a cop out.
Yeah, and I also heard in that when she said that too. Like another one that I heard was like kind of like that justification when someone hits that like, well, I have black friends. You know, I don't see color. You know what I'm saying? But I have a few black friends, and it's like, what you mean? How you don't see color, but you know how many? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Here's my thing.
Like that's
it's a cop. And it's
like stupid.
Language. It's a bunch of BS. Because the thing is, I hate when people say I don't see color. I feel like it's a racist thing to say, or it's a prejudice thing to say. I know that might sound a little extreme to some people, but that's just how I feel. And the reason why is because, you know, whether you believe in God, the universe, whatever, colors are beautiful. There's nothing wrong with seeing colors, right? It's like, haven't you ever seen somebody who's colorblind who puts on the colorblind glasses for the first time? They're friggin' crying because they're actually able to see all of the beauty in color, right? That's just a general, when you're talking about a regular color spectrum. So when you're talking about the beautiful different tones and pigments and melanatedness of somebody's skin tone, like, don't say you don't see it. It's okay to see it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's when you start trying to use that as a crutch to try to weasel your way out of being, you know, a prejudice or a bigot or whatever the situation is, or having that self-hate. You know what I mean? That don't see color thing is foolishness. And the thing that bothered me most about her apology is I felt like she did it not because it was sincere or genuine. She did it because she wanted people to leave her alone. So it's almost like, you know, I wasn't trying to be like that, so just get over it, move on. People don't know me. I'm with a dark-skinned dude. It's like, man, girl, if you don't go sit down somewhere, you go read a book. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how I felt about her apology. I felt like it was a load of crap. And that's just my attitude about that.
I wanted to point out, because I noticed none of y'all brought it up, but when you guys told me about the topic, I kind of did a little research, and I noticed in one particular article, hotnewhiphop.com or whatever, you know, all of her old tweets kind of got exposed. And so one of them in particular, she never identified as Black. You know, and she made that clear in the tweet. So it is kind of hard to consider her a yellow bone or even, you know, just in the same category at this point. But I also wanted to point out the appearance in the apology, you know, the braids, the slang, you know, all of that stuff. So it's typical, you know, when people get caught up for doing some, because I'm going to say racist stuff, since we wouldn't identify her as a colorist, since colorism has to do with being in the same ethnic group, you know, and I would not consider that, but that's disputable, I'm sure. But the appearance, you know, the slang, just to show like, yeah, you know, how can I be a colorist? I have braids in my hair. I have, you know, slang in my talk, all that kind of stuff. So just wanted to point that out.
I think her PR person did a terrible job, because her song is called Yellow Bone, and she even in the post she's talking about light skinned baddie, and of course you're making an issue about color because that's what you put in your song, in your post. The PR person should have coached her and told her to just apologize, and that, you know, she's a little ignorant about the issue of colorism here in the United States, and that she's going to get educated on it and try to help combat the issue of colorism here in this country. But no, she was like, hey, I date a chocolate man. Okay, white women date chocolate men or had relationships or relations with them, yet they still promote them being mistreated and oppressed, or white men could date a black woman and it's still the same thing. They can be racist towards them, hate black people in general, but that particular individual, they may have a fancy to for maybe some sort of fetish, or maybe they like that particular individual, but the group they hate. So that's the same instance here with colorism. Like maybe that particular man you're cool with, but in general, black, dark skinned males and females you don't really associate with. So just her defending herself, like you said, Yasmin, from that standpoint of the braids, the appearance, the actually stating that she's a chocolate man is it looks bad for her on her part, on her front. So
one thing I wanted to add real quick, hold on for a second. One thing I wanted to add really quickly though is also too her move on attitude about it was very reminiscent to me of when you have certain white people who say, slavery happened 400 years ago, get over it. Or you always want to pull the black card, or, I'm not like that. But then they turned around and did something that was like that. You know what I'm saying? That was very reminiscent of that type of attitude. And it's like, you don't get to tell somebody how long they get to be upset about the hurt you caused. Like, if you caused the hurt, they get to be upset about it. Bottom line, you apologize, just like you said, Malik, you apologize, and then you say you're going to get more educate on it, and you leave it at that. You don't sit there and say, oh, yeah, and then try to justify your behavior. Trying to justify it doesn't show sincerity. And as a matter of fact, I think that it shows a lack thereof. But what were you going to say?
Yeah, well, I also think that we got to bring up to one of the points that I think that was made in her defense and others, because, if we're going to say to the point, oh, well, you can't make a song about the yellow bones, well, then, the topic was brought up about, I think it was Angie Stone's Brown Skin song, you know what I'm saying? Or no, I think she made the song Brother, but I can't remember Baby Girl who made the Brown Skin song. But
NDRE,
thank you. So the question became like, well, what's wrong with, promoting that? And is it the argument is that, oh, well, you need to promote the color that has not always been necessarily promoted. It's okay for us to promote that and enjoy that. You know what I'm saying? Brown, Black Girl Magic and this, that. But, if someone was to say light skin magic or this, that, and the third, you know what I'm saying? Would that be considered to be offensive? And so, what would you guys want to say about that area of this discussion?
I just have to point out that brown skin is about a man. Brown skin, I love his brown skin. She's not putting brown skin on a pedestal saying brown skin is what he wants. No, she's saying brown skin, I love your brown skin. So I just had to point that out.
Appreciate that. Yeah, no, which I think is also a great thing, because I don't necessarily think that the conversation even is so much that you can't like light skin, you can't like, you know what I'm saying? But I think it was more so armed along the lines of saying, you can't tell, you shouldn't tell no one, this is it. You know what I'm saying? This, that, and third, or that, not this is it, but just promoting how it was just a certain color over another one in regards to saying that, you feel me, that's what she wants, this is what they want in our community. I feel like that's kind of because like you said, NDRE and her statement was saying, I love her, I love his brown skin. And then in regards to the statement that she was saying, he loves my yellow skin or whatnot. So will we say that, it's different if we're saying that, what I like, it's okay for me to say what I like. But if I tell you, you know what I'm saying, what you want, that's the line where we say nah, hold on, wait a second. You can't tell people, what they should prefer over another thing, but you're more than welcome to seeing what you prefer.
I think the issue with her in particular, Danny Lee, is that fact that she's promoting that light skin is better than dark skin. No, when everybody generally knows the issue of colorism, there's not a, I guess, reverse colorism as you're making of hey, brown skin or darker skin is better than lighter skin. There's no area in which everybody's promoting as a group that dark skin is good and light skin is bad. It's the opposite, where light skin is good and dark skin is bad. So that's where the issue is. So if somebody's promoting darker skin, it's to combat what's already in place. With the lighter shades, the lighter skin, white is right and black is bad, combating all of those concepts. So I think if somebody's trying to make the argument that, hey, well, you're promoting dark skin, is to uplift the people that are affected with colorism, which is Black people entirely as a group. Whether you're light skin or dark skin, you're affected by colorism because our society is unfortunately, it was built based off of racism and the oppression and mistreatment of Black people in this country. So whether you're light skinned or you're dark skinned, you still receive mistreatment. But within that mistreatment, there's the sub issue of colorism, where the lighter people may have received a little bit more benefits than the darker skinned people historically, just based off of maybe their skin. And that was a way of dividing and conquering and further controlling the slaves and former slaves. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, to add to that though, Malik, it would be like what you're talking about is more like Beyonce's song "Brown Skin Girl," right? Because here you have a light skinned woman trying to promote the beauty in brown skin to combat the whole idea of darker being bad or not right or something's wrong with it. It's just to remind people that melanated skin is beautiful and there's nothing wrong with it, and to embrace it and love it. And that's coming from a woman who happens to be of a lighter complexion. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the complete opposite of what is going on with that Danny Lee song, because like you said, it's more so saying, hey, I want to promote the beauty in something, versus saying this is what he wants because it's better. It was taunting, you know what I mean? And it was definitely kind of antagonistic. And so I think that it's definitely an important contrast to make, so that we really truly understand what's going on. But there is another video we have that we wanted to take a look at, and let's go ahead. Do you have it ready, Malik?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it goes to the whole acting light skin too, right? Because I don't know if there's such thing as a reverse colorism. I just think colorism
I was actually just going to point that out, because I think that in order to combat colorism, we have to stop with the narrative of even saying, well, what about this? Because colorism, the word was literally strictly defined and created for discrimination against dark-skinned people. There is no such thing as reverse colorism. So now, do they experience some types of discrimination? I definitely agree with that in their own, experiences. But when we talk about colorism, that's the first thing that people do is, well, what about this or what about that? And that's not how you can, ever solve colorism. So.
Right, because I think it's important to just recognize the fact that both light skinned and dark skinned people go through it, right? And we have to just be better to one another in accepting and understanding and loving the skin that we all have, right? Because there's nothing wrong with having the beauty of a rainbow. So go ahead. What's this video right here, Malik?
It's a colorism joke. It's only 30 seconds, so let's see what they have to say about it.
We've been held back for so long. Think about the light skin struggle, how long we waited. You know what I'm saying? Because people want to call us mixed, but never know how mixed up we are. Was you always get twisted back in the day like that? Y'all bullshit. But what for light skinned niggas, man? A lot of y'all motherfuckers would have made it out in certain situations. Like, so we was always y'all pawn. Y'all like, let's go grab a light skinned nigga. Go talk to white people. Y'all treated us fucked up after that. But y'all squat with that free.
This nigga fool.
Right.
But I do think that kind of came into a little point of making a point of like what we were just talking about in regards to like, or what they were just talking about in regards to saying like, just as a male, you know what I'm saying, it almost was the inverse at some point in time. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless you was Shamar Moore or something like that, like, it really wasn't popping like that, you know what I'm saying, for lighter skinned males at some point in time, you know what I'm saying? Especially, I guess, like the 90s or some shit like that.
I mean, what about Prince, though? Don't forget about Prince.
Right, Prince, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, but to what we were talking about earlier, you have Michael, but, you know, I don't know if it's or whatever, but anyhow, but it is to say, too, like, and that's a funny little contrast, you know, they were joking, but it is to say, like, okay, a lighter-skinned woman, like you said, somebody put on a pedestal, but a lighter-skinned dude, I guess some women would put on a pedestal, but in the man hierarchy, it's like almost like, man, sit your light skin. You know what I'm saying? That and the third. So I think that's an interesting contrast as well, and how that comes in play from gender-wise, how that same very issue could be, you know, viewed differently, just from the, I guess, maybe a light-skinned male side of the game.
Well, that's what I was going with it when I was talking about how people talk about don't quit acting light-skinned. You know what I'm saying? Like almost making it seem like a light-skinned male is weaker than a dark-skinned male, right? Whereas a light-skinned woman is like more of a prize than a dark-skinned woman. And it's like at the end of the day, what are we really talking about, right? What is really going on here? Why are we doing this to one another? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I get it. There's a balance there, but it's not really something that you should be weighing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just, you know, my perspective on that. It's not, it don't hold weight. So it's like, you're really just trying to contrast these meritless, divisive things. And it doesn't do anything to help the community to grow or to better the community and to unify us. Cause, you know, we definitely got some unity issues, you know, that it's almost like the beef between W.E.B. Du Bois and Frederick Douglass, right? Because they definitely, you know, were at odds with one another. But is it like because one is a light-skinned Negro, another one's a dark-skinned Negro? It's like at the end of the day, they was both Negroes fighting to combat, you know, racism.
And too, by the way. I don't know if you.
What you said, Lee?
His second wife was white, by the way. Fun fact.
W.E.B. Du Bois.
Oh,
Frederick Douglass. I was gonna say.
Yeah, fun fact.
You know what I'm saying? But that's the point, you know?
Go ahead, Sam.
No, I was just saying that's the point that I'm making. Like all that does is continue to drive home the point that I'm making. You know what I mean?
Right. I just think with this joke, what people may have not caught, or maybe I think people did catch, was the fact that he mentioned how the light-skinned person to go talk to the police. Like, it's like we all subconsciously know that, like, our society is based off of race, and the lighter you are, the better you are off, generally speaking. And like when you're darker, you got to work harder, you got to go be more creative and figure out ways to survive in this society that was built based off of racism. And this system hasn't repaired that injustice that they started way back in the 1716, even earlier than that, the 1500s. So ever since, you know, other people have landed on this country besides the natives that were already here, Blacks have been mistreated from day one. So that's the issue with this country. Racism, colorism, it kind of goes hand in hand. I think colorism is a sub-issue of racism. And even in the joke, you can kind of see that, like, okay, let's have the lighter person talk to the officer because, you know, us as a darker skin, we don't have a chance. We already know that they hate us. There's nothing we can do. But maybe if he's like maybe their relative or because it's lighter skin, maybe he might pass for white, be able to help us out. So I think that mental conditioning and unconditioning people's minds and promoting, you know, Black excellence, Black people, Black success, you know, Black people just being on code and coming together to help fight the injustices that were done in the past and try to help undo some of those things through a variety of measures. So we do have one more video, unless anybody has a comment about this joke video we just have, so we can
I was just gonna say, am I the only one that grew up in a generation where women were going crazy over Lil Fizz, the B5 group, all the light skinned guys? So I don't know about that. I mean, yeah, I guess today, darker skin men is probably a preference, but I grew up in a time where, you have the light skinned pretty boys. So yeah, that joke is kind of funny because it does kind of relate to the pretty boy era.
Like, Bow Wow and them, that was the only niggas, but Omarion represented for the brown skin niggas when he got older. And nowadays, that ice boxing, you know what I'm saying? Gotta stop playing with my door, he's bounced back though. So, you just gotta wait your time. So for anybody, the tables turn. That's another thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say, because it's always somebody new, right? It's like, because Wesley Snipes done helped, dark-skinned brothers out, or this light-skinned dude done set his back about 15 years, or this dark-skinned dude done set his back 15 years, or the Shamar Moores or Princes of the world helped the light-skinned brothers out, right? And it's like, but you have that with men. You don't have that with women, right? Did you ever notice that contrast? Like you always have this power struggle between light-skinned and dark-skinned men, whereas with light-skinned and dark-skinned women, the competition is totally different. Like, it almost seems like it's all jokes when it comes to men, but when it's women, it creates this like real life complex where women feel like they need to be doing all this extra stuff to their bodies to try to make themselves, their image, be one way over the way, that it actually is. So, I mean, I think it's important I think that's an interesting contrast, right? But either way, what was the last video though, Malik? That was the one with the young lady, and she's dragging him and tagging him, right?
Can I ask Malik or Everett, like, have you all like experienced colorism? Because I do hear from some of my guy friends that in their dark skin or like brown skin, and they definitely experience colorism. I've seen young guys being bullied about their skin color as well. But did you all have any experiences where you would have faced it more? I know it may not be to the extent that we see it today, or it could be. But what was your experience like?
Do you want to go E or?
Yeah, I think it's definitely prevalent. For me, I don't know. I don't know how much of it is because, like you said, direct colorism as much as and I think for me, it's a hard way to try to direct. Well, I guess like you said, when we preference colorism, we're dealing with it within our own community, right? So, within that directness, I'll say like not so much. Because I think the only way that we would really deal with that would be within dating in the realms of someone being like, maybe I don't date dark skinned dudes or something like that. Because, within dealing with people that, saying men in particular, rather, I think we're a little more direct. So it's not like we really care too much about stuff. It's like, if you can hoop, cool, sports or whatever, basketball, okay, we relate to you, cool, whatever. That's it, but I think when it comes to like the dating thing and certain stuff like that, then I think that's when you might run into it a little bit more, or you might realize that certain women have certain type of preference about the guys that they might date. So it might not necessarily come off as, oh, I'm good, I might not date you. You just might look and be like, damn, I just see that might be the only, like, all her dudes seem to be looking like X, Y, Z. So that would be my only experiences within like I said, within my race, or within the diaspora rather.
Well, from my experience, Yasmin, to answer your question, I personally have experienced a little bit of colorism, just in terms of like people making jokes about me being yellow or something, because I used to be a lot lighter than I am currently. So there was jokes about that. But in terms of it really negatively impacting me, it hasn't really negatively impacted me, but like my relatives are darker skinned. So I always wondered and questioned, why are people joking about darker skinned people? Because a lot of times I'm thinking like, look, they get a benefit of their skin being darker. And if they're going through teenage acne, it's not as bad. You can't really see it. It's usually, their skin is usually pretty smooth and flawless. So I'm like, here I am, a teenager going through this acne stuff. And I had it bad. My father had to purchase Proactive for me, and that didn't work. It made it worse. So I didn't really like drinking water that much when I was a kid. So that enhanced the issue as well. So as soon as I started drinking more water, it kind of calmed it down, and I started to do better with the acne. But as far as the colorism goes, I always was wondering, why are people always making those jokes like saying, hey, you're really, really dark, look at your skin, blackie, all that other stuff, the African booty scratcher jokes, all that other stuff. I'm like, man, come on, it's just childish. As soon as I got older, even just not even that much older, like in high school, I was like, you guys got to stop that. Like, it's not even cool, because it's like, I was starting to realize the system we were in. I'm like, man, this stuff is crazy. Even in high school, just a little bit, like, yeah, we need to stop that. It's immature, it's stupid, and it's like no need to have all this infighting amongst each other.
I do want to go back on that reference, because now that I think about it a little bit more, coming up, I don't really feel like I referenced it so much, but just like living in like Southern Florida in particular, I think there is a little bit of it as well within our communities here, and down here in particular, because you have so many different races and a lot of different genders, excuse me, nationalities rather, not different race, but nationalities. So there's a blend of different countries and people that are here. So I think you can kind of deal with it a little bit in this regards too, just because people might not know what you are and who you are. So that might play a little different in the level of playing field in which how people might treat you or look at you or perceive you before, you know, they get a chance to get to know who you are or what you represent.
One thing I want to touch on that you just mentioned, do you find it interesting that people always want to know what your nationality is so they can put you in a box? Like, seriously, like, you know, like you just said, living in a place where where you're in a melting pot, right? It's almost like people want to know what you are so they know how to treat you. You know what I'm saying? And that goes to it, right? Like if I'm light skinned, like, okay, people have asked me what country I'm from. I'm from here. What are your family mixed with? And that sometimes when I want to be a smart ass, I'll say nigger and black. But I mean, the truth of it is my great grandmother came from Ireland, right? But I also have Native Americans somewhere down there. But I'm black, right? Most of my ancestors were black, with the exception of those who may have been, you know, products of rape. I don't know who all of those people are, right? Who does? Who most of us don't. But at the end of the day, it's like you see color because you want to know what I am, but why though? What box are you trying to put me in? Is it for the purpose of, you know, treating me differently? Because, you know, I mean, I get it culturally to an extent, right? Because you want to know whether or not you can relate to a person. But at the same time, sometimes it's not to find out whether or not you can relate. It's to literally figure out how to treat an individual, right? Or whether or not you think you're more superior or not based on that skin.
To them and, you know, I listen to
right.
this, that, and the third, or whatever. It's like, oh man, let's just do what we came to do.
Right. Exactly. So I think we should just go ahead and transition into that last video, and we can go ahead and take a look and talk about that one.
Yeah, I got it though.
Okay.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, sir. All
right.
Got a whole lot of backlash. Then she said she couldn't be colorist because she doesn't see skin and she's dating a whole dark-skinned black man. What was she thinking? Why would she do that? Girl, here's the lie. Number one, you are a white Latina. One that serves as a prime example of a Dominican who went out of their way to prove that they weren't black. And the term yellow bone is reserved specifically for light-skinned black women, so you should not even be using it. Appropriation. Number two, as a white Latina, you should be also familiar with the concept of colorism because Latin Americans have a hierarchy of at least 7 different categories they separate people based on not by race, but by color, with purebred white Spaniards at the top and Africans at the bottom. Number 3, you not seeing skin, honey, is the same as white liberals not seeing color, which is the ignorance that led you to create such a track that was clearly targeting a specific dark-skinned woman because you didn't see how other darker-skinned people would feel about the lyrics to your song. And number 4, you dating a dark-skinned black man does nothing for us besides to remind us of the long history of white people over-sexualizing dark bodies and fetishizing them without any regard to how their identities make them abused, misused, exploited, avoided, ghosted. Hey, you all right? Sorry. It's not about me. Anybody else get the "you're cute" for a dark-skinned girl growing up? But it's still so much bigger than that. Colorism is an anti-Black byproduct of racism because the path to success has always been associated with aspiring to whiteness, economically, philosophically, and physically. Except for when you're white, and then you can get paid for how cool you can make trying to be Black look. That's another conversation for another day about the appropriation of Black women and the exoticization of non-Black women who look Black. I know that's right. Ooh. Anyway, lighter skin has historically been associated with high class, privilege, and luxury, even in ancient Grecian and Roman societies. If you were rich and had servants, you didn't have to be outside in the sun doing work, so you were more often than not a whole lot more pale than the peasant folk. But more than that, Black people immediately saw the effects of colorism when lighter skinned Black people were sold for higher prices on the auction block, when whole underground markets to trade enslaved people were created specifically to trade in fair-skinned mulatto girls. And don't forget about the brown paper bag. Yes, and then you have the whole advent of passing for white. And the only downfall to this point is that if you were able to get into white spaces and they found out that your great-great-granddaddy was Black, it would still be over for you because Miss Octoroon, according to the one-drop rule, you were still Black. Still, being lighter than a brown paper bag could get you into high society clubs. It could get you preference for hiring, even with the Black people. Because make no mistake, there were definitely light-skinned families intentionally breeding with other light-skinned families to ensure that they didn't have any dark-skinned babies. That's just crazy to me because playing. So folks, people aren't upset with Daniel Lay because they're jealous. To say that we are would be perpetuating the idea that lighter skin comes with more beauty and privilege. We're not hating. It's just tiresome when people, especially Black men, stand up in their preference of light-skinned women over dark-skinned women because they too perpetuate the same myth of exceptionalism and the hierarchy of desirability based on skin tone that white people perpetuate on Black people in the hierarchy of success. And that's on what? And that's on the little lamb that Mary had.
That little lamb, I'm telling you, that's the lamb this year, boy.
Right. That's on there. We had a little lamb. She said that. She said
that lamb is where that money resides.
Points that we kind of already hit, but I think one things that we kind of didn't touch on enough is the global impact of colorism and how it's a global issue. And I kind of touched on it a little bit, how colorism is a sub-issue to racism. And I think she kind of further illustrated that point because she's talking about how Danny Lee is a white Latina and Latin America. I don't know if you guys ever been anywhere in Latin America or have friends or family that come from Latin America, the Caribbean, or South America, but colorism is a big issue. And with colorism, you associate colorism with class. It's like a caste system, essentially. So the lighter you are, the more money and richer and wealthier you are, and the darker you are, you're going to be in these ghettos, all kinds of downtrodden communities and stuff like that. It's similar to here, except here it's more race-based. We're segregated based off of our race, and it's still like that to this day. And her video just really illustrates the point that this is a global problem amongst for Black folk. So all Black people all over the world. And colorism is just a sub-issue of racism, and it's there to divide and conquer. While we're busy infighting, we're not able to actually successfully combat the real issue, which is systematic racism and systemic racism globally. So Black people all over the world are being oppressed for the benefit for these lighter people, specifically white people, because it's a global system. And what we found out over these past few years, people are becoming more woke to white supremacy, but I don't think people really know just how deep this stuff really goes, and how it's really a global system. Some people think, hey, I can go to Africa somewhere or the Caribbean and avoid this stuff. And so sometimes it's worse than over here, because over here there's some Pan-Africanism, there's some sense of being Black a little bit, but over there they're like totally controlled. Like my experience being when I went to Africa, for example, Ghana specifically, they interact totally different than the Black people here. It's totally different. They do have colorism issues there too, as well. But in terms of their mental conditioning, when it comes to race, white supremacy, and racism, it's even worse than here. So less people over there are woke than even here. And there's a lot of Black people off code when it comes to, she mentioned in the video, the dating, how Black men are promoting light-skinned women. Black men are just specifically off code when they're doing that. Like, hey, light-skinned women are better. No, they're not. They're still Black women. So that's incorrect. That's a fallacy. And, we definitely need to support, as Black men, Black women in general, and promote Black women. Just like, hey, we don't care about your light skin or dark skin. We're just supporting you because you all we got, really. And you guys should definitely support us because you got Black women are definitely, literally, Black men are all you have because a lot of men aren't really, supportive of Black women like that. I know they want to promote interracial dating like that, but Black women are number one, the least married in this country, and they're least likely to date outside their race. So I know there's a trend towards interracial dating, but it hasn't improved too much over the past few years. So I would have to check on the updated stats when they come out, but that's the last time I checked on them. I think U.S. Census Bureau I checked. So does anybody have any thoughts on that? I know it was a lot.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to touch on based on what you said, and it's just the global racism. I mean, colorism, right? And I think to really get a very good understanding about that, Chancellor Williams wrote a book back in like 1971 called The Destruction of the Black Civilization, and it goes all the way back to I can't remember the date. It's BC time, starting back in Africa, talking about the African dynasties and colonialism and how it was colonized and what happened to the race, right? Not the race, but the race. You know what I'm saying? And you almost can see how colorism started, right? When you start talking about people coming into Africa, when they start having, biracial children and how they begin to migrate. Because when you start looking at, even in a country like India, you have, some people from India who are very fair complected, and then you have some who are very, very dark. Even looking at the island of Haiti and Dominican Republic, they literally share an island and hate each other because of skin color. You know what I'm saying? And not having a willingness to accept the fact that many of them are descendants of Africans. So it's like this useless fight, but it's a serious fight, right? So I think really understanding that. So if anybody's interested in learning more about, Black people and where we fit in society and how colorism affects us, you can really see it in that book called The Destruction of the Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. It really gives a great, great breakdown. And it also kind of helps to understand where we are as a Black community today, to understand from where that book ends and where we are now. I mean, I really think that somebody should write a continuation of that book because it also touches on, a lot of other things about the culture. But as it pertains to, colorism specifically, you do get to see, how Black people viewed not just biracial people, but also too, because like, for example, like, you talk about the one drop rule. Well, over there, that one drop rule was reversed. They said that, if you had one drop of white blood, you were considered white, whereas here in America, it was the other way around. So I think that it's very interesting, and it helps to really kind of understand the foundation of colorism, and learning how to understanding that will help you learn how to combat it, yeah, and that's my addition. Anybody else have anything they want to add?
Yeah, no, I think we can go ahead and wrap this one up. This was a really good episode. We definitely want to thank our guest, Yasmin, for coming in and everything that she provided with great intel on the subject. Look forward to hopefully having you on soon on time. Everyone else, man, definitely had a great time listening and everything. And hopefully to the viewers, we just hope that this is something that you guys can take within your own communities and talk to your own friends and families and try to continue on this conversation so that hopefully we can collectively or have some type of impact on bringing this situation and awareness of this issue, which has been long standing within our community.
Well, you guys, again, thank you for joining us here on our Counterpoise podcast. We definitely would love for you to hit the subscribe button, comment, like, share, all that good stuff. Let people know to come check us out. We drop videos every Tuesday at 2 p.m. right here on YouTube. You can also look for us very, very soon, coming to do a live. So hopefully you guys will check us out when we do that. I know we also have our own personal social media pages, but please feel free to go ahead and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for the Counterpoise Podcast. That's our handle on all three platforms. Mine on my IG is Samantha Renee 77_ESQ, and it's Samantha Adams ESQ on Facebook. So you guys go ahead, feel free to get in touch, holla at me, whatever you want to say. You know, I'm always here to have a nice open dialogue with the people. Anybody else want to go ahead and give their social media handles or how to reach them? If everybody doesn't want to necessarily put their IG out there or their social media out there, and that's perfectly fine too. But if you're open, go ahead and let us know.
Yeah, I wanted to Yasmin. Do you have anything you want to say? Any last words?
I just wanted to say thank you guys. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that it does open up the door for people who may not have heard about colorism, just to be more inquisitive about it and to understand some of the issues within our community. You all were great. I've really enjoyed it, and I've tuned in to you guys' previous podcasts, and I'm a fan. So I'm just proud of you all, and I hope that you continue the good work. And educating the people.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for
coming, and hopefully you come back.
And Sam, say we drop videos every Saturday at 2 p.m., not Tuesday.
What did I say?
You said Tuesday, Sam. It's okay.
Yo, it's been a long week.
Yeah,
So you guys want to go ahead and give your handles?
Yeah. Follow me at Malik M. Foster. That's on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Do I have anything else? I think that's it. But my handles for everything is Malik M. Foster, so you can connect with me there. What's yours, E?
Everett Stevenson. That's probably what it is on Facebook, which I'm hardly ever on. Working on that, guys. But that guy 2104 on Instagram, and Clubhouse. Anything else? I'm trying to think. Oh, Twitter coming soon. I definitely need to get more involved in that as well. But appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we have some more heat coming for y'all really soon. Thanks.
Yeah, comment too, because we'll respond. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for coming to our Counterpoise podcast.
Yeah, check us every Tuesday. I mean Saturday. So you got me saying it every Saturday.
Every Saturday too. Thanks, guys.